So, where did we stop? We're talking about joins, join queries. Today, we will see the other joins. First, we saw inner join. That is what we did in the
మొత్తం
last.
ఎస్ఎస్ఎన్ ఇమ్మంటుంది. మొత్తం ఎస్ఎస్ఎన్ కావాలంట. సందీప్ కూడా ఇచ్చేస్తే భయ్యా అంటున్నాడు.
Now, let's write a outer join here. First, we'll write it in the SQL. So, you see, it's pretty simple and straightforward. All you need to do is just replace that inner with left outer. That's it. Replace the inner with left outer. That is what we need to do. So, now which records will be fetched here for this left outer join? Can you people tell me? Any idea? Yes, for left outer join, so if we execute this query, then what exactly you're going to get? Yes. So for inner join, you'll find that yes, by default, all the records from the table which is on the left side of the join will be fetched. All the records from the table which is on the left side of the join, all the records by default from the table which is on the left side of the join will be fetched here. So that is what happens. So which table is on left side of the join here? You see we are joining two tables, right? What do you people think? Now which table is on the left side of the join? So the product table I can say. You see, first on the left side of the join, you see this term we got left outer join, right? So here on the left side of the join we have specified that product table name. On the right side of the join we have specified the supplier table name here. Yes. So let's try to run this query. By default, all the products, no matter whether there is associated supplier record or not, they'll be fetched. You see, now down, for many of the products here, there is no supplier associated. Still they are fetched. So in case of inner join, what happens? Let's try to quickly recollect once. In case of inner join, what happens? We saw inner join, right? So you'll find that in case of inner join, all the records from the table which is on the left side of the join will be fetched. All the records from the table which is on the left side of the join will be fetched here. Yes. Sorry. In case of inner join, I'm sorry, not left side. You know, it will be based on that condition. I'm sorry, based on the condition. What is the condition? You'll find that wherever this common column, that supplier ID matches, that common column is there, na? Wherever the supplier ID matches, that records will be fetched here. Yes. Sorry. Okay. Now let's write a left order join here. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is just change that inner from inner to left outer. That's it. All you need to do is just change that inner to left outer join. But you know what? Here there is one important point which you need to remember. Now for each row, you know that a product and supply record is fetched. For each row, you know that a product and supply records are fetched, right? But in case of left order join, you'll find that for few products, there are no suppliers. That means the supplier reference will be null. That means the supplier reference is going to be null. So now that means you have to check whether the supplier reference is null by any chance. If it is null, you should not read that record here, I can say. If it is null, you should not read that record. Yes. So why you're not supposed to read that record? Because if it is null on the null reference, see if you use null reference to read or access any properties of that particular object, what happens? It throws an exception. What is that exception? The most common exception. What is it? On the null reference, if you try to access any property on the null reference, if you try to access any property, then what happens? You're going to get null pointer exception. Null pointer exception. That is the most common exception. So sometimes people may ask you, what is the most common exception which you come across in the development? You know, the most common exception which we come across in the development is null pointer exception itself. Okay, so I have to check for that null reference. Yes. Let's run this code. You see, for all these products, there is no supplier. There are no suppliers associated for all these products. From here, you see, you got suppliers associated to this product. So that is about the left outer join. So any queries? No, right? Okay, good. Similarly, see, we can write a right outer join. So can you people tell me what happens in case of right outer join? Yes, this should be easy for you people. Yes. So in case of right outer join, all the records from the table which is on the right side of the join will be fetched. All the records from the table which is on the right side of the join will be fetched. That means on the right side of the join, we got which table? You'll find that on the right side of the join, we got the supply table. So all the records from the supplier table will be fetched here. Yes. Okay. Irrespective of whether there is associated product or not, all the supplier records will be fetched. So in this case, there is a possibility that the product reference can be null. For a particular product, there might not be any, sorry, for a particular supplier, there may not be any product. Yes. So make sure that the product reference is not null. That's it. Okay. Sorry, did I change it here? Sorry, I didn't change it here. From right RIGHT. Okay, good. Run. So these are the records which are fetched. So any questions? So this is about HQL. Okay. Now you know what is HQL, how to use HQL queries. Yes. So we know the advantages of HQL over SQL. Next, shall we move on? The next thing here, what we're going to talk about is criterias. Hibernate provides another way of querying the database without writing any query. Without writing a query, we can fetch the records. We can query the database. Let's see. That is where we use criteria. Criterias, you'll find that they are purely object-oriented queries. That means a purely object-oriented way of querying the database, I can say. Purely object-oriented way of querying the database. That means here we are not going to write any query. We are not going to write any query. Yes. So without writing a query, we're going to fetch the record. So how is it possible? Let's see. That means we don't write, we will not write it, but definitely Hibernate internally is going to generate the query. So what is the advantage of doing this? First of all, you see people who are not familiar with SQL or query language. Okay, people who don't know how to query the database, even they can fetch the records here. Okay, because they don't need to write any query, right? Yes. So even though you're not familiar with the query language, still you will be able to fetch the records. So let's try to do this. Session dot. I'll show you people how to write a criteria. Product dot class. So I'm creating a criteria object. You see, again, I'm using session itself here. Through the session object itself, we're going to create the criteria. Yes. So create criteria, and you see to this create criteria method, I'm passing that product class name, which indicates that I want to fetch the product records here. It indicates that I want to fetch the product records. Okay. So now we can directly execute this criteria now. Criteria dot list. What happens if I do this? Here, you see, you'll find that by default, it will fetch all the product records from the database server. By default, it is going to fetch all the product records from the database server here. That is what happens. Okay, so let's execute this code. Criteria. You'll get list of product objects, I can say. Now this is simply fetching all the records. Select star from test or product, I can say. Okay, so let's run this code. See, we got all the product records. So what happens internally? Hibernate is going to generate a select SQL query. Select SQL query. Hibernate is going to generate a query here. Yes, select query. Okay, a native SQL query, SQL query, and it executes it in the database server. That's it. Your database server, cannot understand that criteria. But what if I want to filter the records? That means I want to add some conditions here for restrictions. And generally, here when we talk about the conditions, I can say that conditions are actually called as criterions here. We call them as criterions. They are known as criterions. We have to add that criterions means conditions. So for that, we have to use restrictions class. To create that criterions or conditions, use restrictions class. Here, for suppose, let's say I want to fetch all the product records whose ID is greater than, let's say, 105. Generally, if it is HQL or SQL, you'll use a relational operator greater than. Okay, you'll find that we use that relational operator greater than. But when it comes to criterias for that relational operator, in case of relational operator, we are going to use a method called as GT, greater than. So this GT method, we use it in place of, it represents that greater than operator, relational operator. So now let's specify the property name. This is the property whose value we want to compare. It should be greater than 105. So this restrictions method, GT method, it's a static method. It returns that criterion object which represents this condition here, greater than ID greater than 105. So GT is a method. Okay, GT is a method which represents greater than. Yeah, sorry. So now you see this criterion object represents that condition. Okay, this criterion object represents that condition. Now, is this condition associated to the criteria? Did we associate that criterion to the criteria? We didn't. Okay, so to that criteria we need to associate that criterion now. Okay, add criterion, that's it. Okay, So this criterion object represents the condition. So hope you people got it. Yes. Now you'll find that here all the records whose ID is greater than 105 will be fetched. You see, you have associated the criterion to the criterion. You see, the record ID starts from 109. Okay. Yes. Now, for suppose, let's say, what if I would like to add one more condition here to filter the record? So, what do you people think? What am I supposed to do here? So, if I want to add one more condition, so what am I supposed to do? You know, you can write another criterion. We have to create another criterion object. You see, again in the restrictions class, generally, let's say, okay, in case of SQL queries, you'll use logical operators like and or something like that, right? Yes. Here, when it comes to this restrictions criteria, I'm sorry, here also we'll have operators like and or logical operators to join more than one condition. Okay. Now, what is the other condition on what basis I would like to fetch the records? You see, first of all, the product ID should be greater than 105, let's say. The other one is product name. Let's say it should start with uh, T or something like that. Product name should start with T, let's say. Okay. So product name should start with T. Okay. You see, in case of SQL or HQL, if you want to write this condition where the product name should start with T, so what you will do? What operator you're going to use? What operator you're going to use? Like operator, right? You see, for that like operator, you got a function here or method, I can say, like method. Like the property name. Let's say we want that product name should start with say T percentile. You see, this way we can write another criterion. Now, how to associate this criterion to the criteria? You know that. How to associate this criterion, the second criterion which we have created, criterion 2, to that criteria. So what to do? Use add method. Okay, use add method, not join, add criterion 2. That's it. So now what we did, we have added two criterions here, right? You see in line number 28 we have added the first criterion. In line number 29 we have added the second criterion. That means we have two conditions here, right? So if you have more than one condition, okay, normally we use logical operators, right? So you got the point here. So we are not specifying any, or we are not using any operators here. Yes. So if you're not using any operators, yes. So what happens? You'll find that if you don't use any operators, by default, logical operators, I'm talking about logical operators, by default, you'll find that here the criteria will use ampersand here, or and it uses and, yes, it uses and, okay, it uses and logical operator and. So if logical operator and is used, it will make sure that here both the conditions should be satisfied by that record. Only those records will satisfy both the conditions will be fetched here. Okay, yes, you got the point. Yes. So, but you know what if okay, by default it uses and, as I told you people, by default it uses and. But what if I want to use or here? Okay, by default it uses and operator, where here you'll make sure that both the conditions should be satisfied by that record. But if you want to use or, then we have or function or method, I can say. We got or method for that. We got or method also. Okay, yes, or method. I'll show you people, but before that, let's see this and itself. By default, it uses and. Okay, actually, you see, you didn't get any records. You didn't get any record. Let's see whether there is any record whose product ID is greater than 105 and whose name starts with T. You see, after 105, the product names are here. Is there any product whose name starts with T? No, there is no such product. I'll give S here. Let's say I'll give S instead of T. So let me run this code. Now you see we got many records whose name starts with S. Okay, so if you want to join these two conditions using logical operator or, using the logical operator or, in that case I'll tell you what to do. Here we'll not add the criterions directly in this case. We should not add the criterions directly. First of all, we have to join these two criterions using logical method or logical operator or. For that, we have or function here. Or function is there. Or method, I can say. You see, these two criterions which you want to join using logical operator or. So we'll pass them here this way. Okay. So this logical operator, so this method or method, what it does is it will join those two conditions and it returns a logical expression object. Logical expression object. So what is this logical expression object here? I can say that logical expression object is nothing but your complex criterion. Complex criterion. So that criterion, I will add it to that criteria here. I'll add it to the criteria. Yes. I'll add it to the criteria. Okay. So hope you people got it. Logical expression means it's a complex criterion. Complex criterion means it's a combination of more than one criteria. Now this time, okay, earlier we have used T, we didn't get any records, right? This time I'll use that name as T. That means the first letter should be T. Let's see what happens this time. You see, we got many records. Okay, so any questions? Even actually, if you got and method also, and method is also there. But as I told you, people by default it will use this and. If you try to add more than one criterion, by default it will join them using and operator itself. If you want to join more than one criterion or conditions using or, then you have to explicitly use that or method. Okay. I'm expecting one question. Any questions? Yes. I thought someone will ask this question. Okay, what if you have more than two criterions? What if you have more than two criterions? You got the question? What if you have more than two criterions? Will you people try that? If you have more than two criterions, what to do? Okay, that is your task. Fine. You see, you'll find that for every SQL operator, we got a method in the restrictions class. Like you see, we saw GT method. It is for greater than. Similarly, for LT method is for less than. Similarly, for equal to, we have EQ method. Similarly, for not equal to, this is for not equal to, we have this method. For every operator, you will find a method. And for greater than equal to GE, this is the method. Greater than equal to. For less than equal to, this is the method. Less than equal to. And for and, we saw that method. And method is, sorry, and method is there. For our and operator, we have and method. For or, we got or method. For like, sorry, for our like operator, we got like method. For all the operators, okay, whatever you have, like in method, in operator, you have a method. For between, for everything, you'll find a method here, okay, between. Please make a note of it. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. Hello. Can you people hear me? Oh, just a second. I'm sorry, I lost the connection. Yeah, sorry. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, in the last class, we saw projections, right? So, what are projections? What are projections? Projections. In the last class we saw projections, right? What are projections? Okay, first of all, hope you can hear me, right? All of you, hope you're able to hear me. Yeah, can you people hear me? Want to confirm this once? Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, fine. So, what are projections? Did you people remember? Projections means fetching the record partially. Instead of fetching the record completely, fetching the record partially. Yes, only specific column values, something like that. Yes. So, here, even in criterias, we can write that projections here, fetch the records partially. We'll be able to fetch that records partially. Let's see how to do that here. So first of all, let me just, okay, we can also add conditions and all, that's fine. But let me concentrate on this. Let me show you people only this projections part here. So first of all, so if you want to fetch the records, only few selected column values, let's say. You want to fetch only few selected column values, not the complete record. So in that case, first of all, what you need to do is you need to create a projection list object. You need to create a projection list object here. Create a projection list object. How to create a projection list object? So in order to create a projection list object, so we got a class called as projections. In that projections class, we got the static method called as projection list. So what we are going to do with this projection list object, we'll take this, we'll create this projection list object, and in this projection list object, add that field names or property names whose values you want to fetch. Which property values you want to fetch. Which property values you want to fetch. That details is specified. You see here also one more thing, I'm sorry. One more thing. Always you'll specify the class and the property details here, not the table or column details. What we are doing here, you see, we'll specify the class name and its property details here. Yes, in the criteria also. We don't use the table and column details. Fine. Now you specify the properties whose values you want to fetch. So we got a add method, add projections dot property. Specify that property name. Let's say I would like to fetch name. Next price, let's say. That's it. See that line 29 and 30. So this way you'll specify that property details. Each property represents a column, right? So that particular property values will be fetched. Only that particular property values will be fetched. So you will find that here that field names or property names, we have them in the projection list. We have just simply added them to the projection list. But we need to supply them to the criteria as well. We have to pass this list to the criteria. We have to pass this list to the criteria here. Okay. Yes. So criteria dot set projection, pass that projection list here. That's it. So we will not use add method here to add that projection list. So we'll use set projection list method. We'll use set projection list method here. That's it. So this time, you know what? If we execute this criteria, so what exactly you're going to get this time? If you execute this criteria, and what happens? Yes. So that means what exactly you're going to get is what exactly that method returns. So we'll execute that criteria, right? So will you get list of product objects? If I execute the criteria, will I get list of product objects here? In the last class we saw that, right? So what you'll get? Yes. Come on. So you'll get list of object arrays. Very good. You'll get list of object arrays here. So this time for each row which is fetched, each and every row which is fetched, you'll find that an object array is created and that row values will be added to that object array. That row values will be added to the object array. Okay, list of object arrays. Yes. So the first value in that object array will be name, objects of 0, and the second value which is at index 1 is price. That's it. Okay, so this is what we'll do. So we got the product ID, sorry, product name and price. So this is about projections. Next, here, what if I want to execute aggregate functions? So the criteria, will they support aggregate functions? The criteria here, will they support aggregate functions? So criteria, I can say that they support aggregate functions also. Okay, criteria definitely support aggregate functions. See, through this projection list itself, you will be able to execute aggregate functions, I can say. Through the projection list itself, you will be able to execute aggregate functions. Yes. So, for suppose, let's say I want to find out the maximum price, max price. I would like to find out the maximum price here. So what to do? Let's see. So I'll comment these two lines. So I'll also comment this code. So we got a criteria object and we got a projection list object here. We got a criteria object as well as a projection list object. Yes. You know, here the projection list, to this projection list itself, we'll add that aggregate function details. To this projection list itself, we'll add the aggregate function details here. So projection list dot add projections dot max function. You see, we have all the aggregate functions here. Max price. That's it. This way, to this projections list object itself, we'll add that aggregate function details here. Okay, fine. So now let's try to execute this aggregate function. That means, I mean, the criteria here. In this criteria, we have this aggregate function. Yes. You see, this time when we execute this criteria, we are going to get only one row or one record. We are only going to get one row or one record, right? Yes. So in this case, here, how will you execute this criteria? What method you're going to use? In the last class, we saw that like we had another method which we can use if you want to fetch only a single record, a single value. In this case, you'll get only single value, right? So what is that method? In the last class, we saw that. In case of HQL, we have used it. In HQL, we have used a method to execute the query when you have only one record to fetch. Unique result, very good, excellent. So unique result is a method which is used for that purpose. So let's call this method unique result. Criteria. First of all, we need to add this criteria, sorry, projection list to the criteria, right? Set projection list. And then we'll execute the criteria using unique result method. That's it. We'll get max price. That's it. So always that method unique result method returns object type reference. You cast it to the appropriate type here. Yes. Okay. Let's run this code. See max price. So this way, using a criteria, we can execute an aggregate function here. So is it clear for you people? So one last thing which I'll show you people here is how to fetch the records by writing a condition on the associated records, associated objects, let's say. Now you see we are trying to fetch the product records, right? And if you want to write any conditions here for this product records, so in that case we'll use this criteria object and we'll write that conditions here. Already we have written that criterions, you see, for example. So these two criterions, if you consider, so we are creating this criterion objects which represent the conditions, and we are directly adding it to the criteria. We are directly adding it to the criteria here. So that conditions will be applied for the product records. But for suppose here, while fetching the records, I want to add the condition here for the suppliers. I want to fetch those products whose supplier name starts with some character. I want to fetch those products whose supplier name starts with some letter, let's say. So we are not adding the condition on the product records, but we'll add the condition on the associated records here. To suppliers, sorry, to products we got suppliers associated. So on the associated supplier records, we'll add the conditions. So in that case, what to do? Can you people give me any suggestions? Yes, any suggestions? Please, we can use, okay. Okay, I'll show you people. Just check this. Now we have created a criteria object, right? Now this criteria object, we have created it by passing the class name, product class name. So that means this criteria object here, it represents that product object. And if you write any condition, generally if you add that condition here to this criteria, the conditions will be applied to the product objects itself or product records. So if you write any criterions and add that criterions here to the product criteria object, the criterions will be applied to the product records only. But our requirement is to apply that criterions or conditions to the supplier records. So for that reason, what you're going to do is here we'll create a criteria object. We'll create a criteria object for the suppliers. Okay, session dot create criteria. Sorry, suppliers. Sorry, but we'll not create the criteria this way. I'm sorry. So what you'll do is I'll use that product criteria to create a criteria here. Through the product criteria object, we can do that. In the product class, we got a supplier reference variable, right? Yes. This is a kind of join query now. So what you're doing is you're writing a join query. Yes. You're writing a join query. Yes. So we are creating a supplier criteria object through the product criteria. We're creating a supplier criteria object through the product criteria. Yes. So that is what we are trying to do here. Yes. So to that method, we are passing that supplier, right? What is that supplier? Supplier is nothing but the reference variable which you got in that product class, which associates the product and supplier, I can say. Yes. On the associated supplier record, we would like to add the condition, right? So that's the reason why we are creating a criteria object here for the supplier. Now, if you add any restrictions here, if they will be applied, sorry, just a second. For suppose you got a supplier whose name starts with S, let's say. Um, I'll create a criterion, and what we'll do here, product name, it starts with S. Now this criterion, I want this criterion to be applied to that supplier objects. So for that, what am I supposed to do? Can you people tell me? If I want this criterion or condition to be applied to the criteria suppliers, I'm sorry, that criteria, if I want it to be applied to the suppliers, then what I was supposed to do here? So we will need to add this criterion to the supplier criteria object. For the supplier, we got a criteria object, right? So add this criterion to that supplier criteria object, which indicates that this condition or criterion should be applied to the supplier records here. This criterion or condition should be applied to the product records. Yes. Okay. Now you can execute the query here. Or we can execute this criteria. So this criteria, it is already associated, that supplier criteria is associated to the product criteria, right? Yes. You see, I'll execute that product criteria itself instead of supplier. We'll get list of product objects here whose name starts with, sorry, whose supplier name starts with S. Okay. Okay. Now let's try to, now we got the product records, right? So how will you fetch the associated supplier record here? I want to display that supplier names so that we'll come to know whether it starts with S or not. Okay. How will you fetch that supplier record now? Product dot get supplier. So you got a supplier reference variable. No, we don't have it. Huh? I'll add it. You got a supplier reference variable, but there is no getter and setter method for that supplier. Get supplier, set supplier. See, so get supplier, supplier ID, supplier name is okay. Let's run this code. Let's see. You see the product name is Galaxy Edge. See the supplier for this product. So it starts with S. Supplier name starts with S. Okay. So Similarly, for other suppliers also, you see the supplier name starts with S itself. Yeah. Okay. So can I say this is a join? Is it a join query? Can I say this is a join query? I can say yes. This is a join query itself. You know, for this criteria, SQL query is generated. For this criteria, an SQL query is generated. You can see this. See the last part of this query. Inner join supplier supplier ID equal to ID where you got a condition here. See, it's basically inner join itself. Yes. But on this inner join, we got a condition here additionally. Additionally, there is a condition which is added. What is it? Where supplier name like, you see the last part, supplier name like. So that is the condition. Yes. Okay. So, any questions? Okay, good. Now, actually, what is the advantage of this criteria when we have to use this criteria? So, what do you people think? When we need to use this criteria? So when we have to use the criteria. So what is the advantage? Did you people find any advantage of using the criteria over HQL? Already we have discussed about the advantages of HQL over SQL, right? Now, if you compare this criteria with the HQL, so do you see any advantage? So whatever you know, whatever you understood, tell me. Don't worry. Okay, fine. I'll tell you people. You know, definitely there is an advantage here of using criteria. So, but not in all cases we use criteria. Especially, let's say, when you have to construct the queries dynamically based on the user's input. Sometimes, you know, we will not construct the query beforehand itself. It is not possible to construct the query beforehand itself. We may need to construct the query dynamically at runtime based on that user's input. So users will tell us or will provide some input. Based on that, you have to construct the query. In that case, criterias are of course going to be an advantage, I can say. Criterias will be definitely advantage. Yes. So because you see these are all method calls, right? So these are all method calls. So it will be simple to add that method calls and all. It won't be that difficult. Okay. So here, can you people give me any example? Have you come across any such example where the query will be dynamically generated based on the user's inputs? Did you people notice any such queries which are generated dynamically based on the user's input itself? Yes. No? Okay, nowadays you will see that in the online shops, online shopping sites here, I can say definitely you'll see it in online shops. Okay, just a minute. Yeah, sorry. So I'll show you people. I saw this in few sites online. You'll find it. I guess I saw that in Roma retail. It's taking some time to load. Just a minute. Okay. Actually, Chroma Retail is from Tata company. Tata, you know Tata's, right? So this is from Tata. Okay. For suppose you take anything, say air conditioners or something like that. Now you see, now you want to search for an AC, air conditioner. Now for that, you can narrow down the search. So you may have some requirements, right? Okay, you want the air conditioner here from a particular brand or from a particular company. And air conditioners will be again window, split, portable, inverter based and all. And there will be price range. You see here to help you people narrow down the search, even you see that the capacity also, rating, star rating also. There are many conditions, sorry, the many, uh, you know, features here or different requirements for a different, for a particular person. A person may want to search for the air conditioner based on the brand, let's say LG, and it should be 1.5 ton AC. Now see, now based on this, a query has to be generated, and accordingly the product records should be fetched here. You see, now we have that options. You see, refined by. You can check this LG, and see if we come down, you have 1.5 ton or 1.25 ton, whatever it is. Okay, if you scroll down, you have more. So 1.5 ton, let's say. If I check this option, and if I check this LG, you see now based on these two conditions, that means based on the brand and the ton, that capacity 1.5, the records will be filtered here. Okay, so as of now we are yet to submit this. Okay, 1.5 ton. Let's say I want it to be LG. Sorry, just a second. It's taking some time. Now, that means you see the search, the queries which are generated here for searching the records. So they have to be dynamically generated based on that user's input, right? Now user will select LG. Now you have to select all the products, okay, whose brand is LG. Yes. So the page is not yet loaded. There is some issue. Hope this is clear for you people. So now it's taking some time. But okay, hope you got it right. Yes. So this is that means when you have a requirement where you have to write the queries or generate the queries dynamically uh, based on the user's input, then criterias are better. Okay, yes, that is what I can say. And also another advantage is even people who are not familiar with querying, they can still write that SQL queries here. So can I have yes or no? So hope you understood, right? Okay, so this is one of the best things. Now you know how to query the database using HQL and all. So I need only few couple of classes here to complete this Hibernate part, and we'll move on to Spring Framework. Okay, yes. So I'll stop it here today. Tomorrow is going to be a long session for us. Okay, I'll try to take it for 3.5 to 4 hours. So beforehand itself, I'm informing you people. So I'll make it 3.5 to 4 hours tomorrow. Okay. Yes. So uh, class starts at same time, but we'll extend the time, extend the class hours. Okay.